Hello, Workplace Math 10 students. This is the seventh assignment in the graphing unit. We're going to be talking about how to create a pie chart or a sector graph, as they call it in mathletics. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So this is the assignment here. It's G7, and once again, it's on pie graphs. And the actual mathletics assignment you're going to be working on is called creating a sector graph. So let's take a look at the questions here. So once again, just as a quick reminder, we've already covered line graphs and bar graphs, and we are still in, and this is the last of our three assignments on pie graphs. So recall what a pie graph is. A pie graph is basically a representation of categorical data, usually as a total, and then each particular part of that category is represented as a percentage of that full pie or that full total. Today, what we're going to be looking at is how to determine the percentage that each particular piece of the category would represent of the full 360 degrees within the circle. So let's take a look at some of these assignments questions. So the mathletics assignment, once again, is called creating a sector graph, and this is an example of what the first question might look like. So in this particular question, it says, in a survey, students were asked whether they thought the school uniform should be abolished. 21 agreed, 13 disagreed, and 6 were unsure. And it says the results of the survey are partially shown in the pie chart. Calculate the missing sector angles. So we are told that the unsure represents 54% of the 54 degrees, sorry, of the 360 degrees of the pie chart. What we don't know is the degrees for the agreed or the degrees for the disagreed. And that's what we're trying to figure out here. Now, how do we go about figuring that out? Well, first of all, once again, a pie chart is the total of all these numbers. So what we have to do is we have to calculate or add up the three numbers given here, which is 21, 13, and 6. So we have to add those three together, and obviously we could do this using a calculator, but I'll just show it to you here first. So 21 plus 13 would be 34, plus 6 would be 40. So we're saying here is that this is, the total here is 40. Now, we already know the unsure, but what we need to know is the agreed and the disagreed, how many degrees this represents. So with regards to the agreed, what we would do is we would take 21 and we would divide it by the total number of 40 that we just determined. Once we have that value, we would then multiply that by the 360 degrees. And so this will get us our answer here, which, as we see here, is going to be 189 degrees. And this makes sense because basically 21 is a little more than half of 40, and exactly half of a pie chart is 180 degrees, so this is a little more than that, it's 189. Now, to get the disagreed, what we do is we take the 13 here, the 13 from the disagreed, right? And we would divide that by 40, and then we would take that number, while it's still in the calculator, and multiply it by 360 degrees, and we are going to end up with a result of 117 degrees. So let's see how we can do that using our calculator. So I'm just going to switch to my calculator here, and we will take a look at that. So looking at this, what we would need to do firstly is we would, as I said, need to add up those three numbers, 21 plus 13. So 21 agreed plus 13 disagreed plus 6 unsure, which is 40. So we know that the total is 40. So keeping that number in mind, we need to then take 21, so this is the agreed, divided by that total we just got, which was 40. And then we could press equals if we want, but we don't have to. But this is going to be just over half, 0.525. We need to then multiply it by how many degrees are in a full circle, which is 360. That is where we get the 189 number. So that's the 189 for the agreed. And then likewise, we would, for the disagreed, take the 13, that is the disagreed, divide it by the total of 40, and then multiply by 360 degrees to get the 117. So if I go back here now to my thing, this is why this is 189 degrees and this is 117 degrees. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's take a look at another example. So very similar. This one, though, is talking about modes of transportation, and it's got 4 different categories. So it says here, in a survey, students were asked what mode of transport they used to come to school. The results of their responses were as follows: 17 traveled by car, 8 traveled by bus, 11 traveled by train, and 4 walked to school. So the results of the survey are partially shown in the pie chart. Calculate the missing sector angles. So we are told, we are given the percentage, or the degree, sorry, for car and for walking, but what we don't know is the degrees that would represent the bus and the train. And so once again, we have to figure out our total here. So we'd have to take 17 plus 8. So we have 4 numbers, so we're gonna add all 4 of these numbers, plus 11, and then plus 4. And when we add all that up, so 17 plus 8 is 25, plus 11 is 36, plus 4 is 40. So once again, we have a total of 40 here. And so in this case here, let's look at the bus first. So the bus, it says here that there were 8 that traveled by bus. So I'm going to take 8, and I'm going to divide that by the total I've got, which is 40. And then I'm going to multiply it by my number of degrees in a circle, which is 360 degrees. And that is going to give me my value of 72 degrees. And that makes sense because 8 is basically under a quarter of a pie chart, and a quarter of a pie chart would be 90 degrees. Likewise, then we're looking for trains. So it says that there are 11 that travel by train. So I'm going to go 11, divide by the total that I figured out, which was 40. And then I'm going to multiply by the degrees that are in a circle, which is 360 degrees. When I plug that all into my calculator, it's going to come out with 99 degrees. So let's plug that into the calculator and see what that looks like. So once again, what we're going to do is we need to add up our totals first. So we're going to take the 17 that traveled by car, the 8 that traveled by bus, the 11 that traveled by train, and the 4 that traveled by walking. That gets us 40. So we need to remember that total. We then need to take what we want to compare in this case, which is the bus, and we know that there's 8 that traveled by bus. We divide that by our total number in our all of the traveled ways, and that's 0.2. We multiply that by 360, and that gets us the 72 degrees for our bus. Likewise, there were 11 that traveled by train, so we're going to take 11, divide it by the total number we came up, which was 40, and then multiply that by 360 to get our degrees for that, which is 99 degrees. So 72 degrees for the bus, 99 degrees for the train. So if we go back here now, that's why we have 72 degrees for the bus and 99 for the train. So let's take a look at a couple more examples. Hopefully this is starting to make sense. Once again here, we have slightly different numbers here, but we are going to need to add up these totals. So there's 5 agreed, there's 7 disagreed, and there is 12 that were unsure. So collectively, when we add all that up, that adds up to 24. And so what we need to do is that we are told what the agreed is. We are not told what the disagreed or the unsure are. So we need to know, first of all, let's say they agreed. So the agreed is 5, you can see there. So we're going to take the 5 and divide it by the total, which is 24, and then multiply by 360 degrees. And that is going to give us the value that we should use for the degrees for that, which is 105 degrees. Now likewise, sorry, I used the wrong number there. Just looking at that here. So this should actually have been a 7. So that was 7 divided by 24, and that should be the 105 because the 7 was what was the disagreed. So likewise, for the unsure, we're going to take 12. We're going to divide that by 24, and you probably already know that that's going to be exactly half, and exactly half of 360 degrees is going to be 180 degrees. So let's just plug that into their calculator now and see what that looks like. So we'll click here, and we will turn on our calculator here. So basically what we have here, once again, is we have to add up our three values to find out the total. 5 plus 7 plus 12 equals 24 that we determined. So that 24 total we have to remember. Then we have to take the 7 disagreed, so 7 divided by the 24, and then multiplied by 360 degrees. So that's why we got 105 degrees for our disagreed. Likewise, for unsure, we're going to go 12 divided by the total of 24 and then multiply by 360 degrees, which gives us exactly 180 degrees. So that's why the disagreed is 105 degrees, the unsure is 180 degrees. So let's just click back and take a look at that. So that's why we got 105 and 180. And let's take a look at one last example. So this one here, we could read over this question, but basically we just need to add these numbers together. So 7 plus 15 plus 3 plus 11. So 7 plus 15 is 22 plus 3 is 25, and then plus 11 is 36. So the total here is 36. Now we already know the bus and we already know the car. What we don't know is the train, and we don't know the walk. So the train is right here. So 3 traveled by train. So that's why we're using the 3 number here. So 3, and then I'm going to divide that by 36, and then I'm going to multiply by 360 degrees. And that's going to give me a value of 30 degrees. And likewise, the walk, it said there were 11 that walked, so we're going to use that 11 number there, divide it by the total that we determined, which is 36, and then multiply that by 360 degrees, and that should come out at 110 degrees, which makes sense because it's less than half, quite a bit less than half. It's actually less than even a third of 36, so that's why it would be 110 degrees. So let's just plug those in the calculator and just see, confirm those numbers. So once again, we have to add those 4 numbers, 7 plus 15 plus 3 plus 11, and confirm, okay, yeah, the total is 36. So remembering that number, we then need to plug in the number that relates to the train, which is 3. So 3 people traveled by train. Divide that by the 36 total, and then multiply by 360 degrees. So that's where we get the 30 degrees from. Likewise, we're going to take the 11 that walked, divide it by the total of 36, and then multiply by 360 degrees to get the 110 degrees. And therefore, when we come back in here, that is why we are going to see these are the correct answers of 30 degrees and 110 degrees. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. Thanks for watching. And once again, as always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to just give me an email. Thank you.